Alan Summers is founder of Call of the Page, supporting writers worldwide, and chief tutor for group or one-to-one sessions. Alan is also the founder and editor-in-chief for the Haiku Reader, focusing on supporting readers worldwide. So let's get right to it and take it away, Alan.
Thank you. Okay, this is the summary, abstract rather. Just fiddle about until I got it working for everyone. I'm aware that quite a few people are on telephones instead of computers, so I will make the PDF available, as Jay mentioned. Okay, the Haiku Reader. What is it? Followed by Q&A. This 10-minute presentation is followed by an opportunity for 30 minutes of Q&A. The Haiku Reader is both anthology and campaign aimed to grab readers around the world and showcase haiku and senryu as an intriguing, poetic and inclusive genre. The anthology process is designed to be immersive, and this Q&A experience is so that you can ask why this is different, what's meant by immersive, and other questions. This is not only to gain some answers, it's to consider a chance to steer and encourage others to be a haiku reader. Right. Next slide. Hope no one's on a diet. Okay, I'll be repeating some of these submission details through the presentation, and as you know, I'll make the PDF available. So, how do we choose delicious haiku? Well, the test of the haiku, as you know, is in the tasting. Read, taste, repeat, digest, and enjoy the process. So the Haiku Reader Anthology accepts nominations all the way through to the very last day of December of this year. The Haiku Reader email, and I'll be saying this again a number of times, it's the Haiku Reader, or one word lowercase, the Haiku Reader @gmail.com. You can nominate as many times as you like throughout 2022. The anthology will feature haiku, of course, hokku, and senryu, otherwise collectively called Haiku verses. So this will be published in journals, contests, posted on social media, or first appeared in any other way, including haiku parks and other installation art, even unpublished or never seen before work. And again, this is all the way from January this year to the last day of December. Next slide. Remember, there's half an hour of questions, so this will seem a bit fast, but we'll go over it a lot. So how does the anthology work? When you nominate your own haiku verses for the anthology, you need to do something extra special each time. This is by choosing haiku verses from other poets as well. It's being both thankful and grateful for poems by others that you discover along the way. And by immersing and submerging ourselves with the poetic genre that we love, we find ourselves growing even more as poets and readers. I hope no one's put on extra calories with all the cake. There's some more carbs though. Okay. I'm just going to get rid of some of those icons so I can scroll up and down. Right, so how? Okay, for individual poets, each time you nominate one of your own published or unpublished haiku, senryu, or hokku, you nominate 6 published haiku verses by other poets, or unpublished ones if they give permission. So this is 3 from a print journal plus 3 from online journals. As there's a rising popularity in online journals, I wanted to make sure that print journals are regularly nominated, because often the default is to nominate from online journals. So you can nominate as many of your own haiku, senryu, hokku as you like, as often as you like throughout 2022, while nominating 6 haiku verses by others each time that you nominate one of your own. Right, moving on from the cakes and bread. And obviously I'd like to encourage journal editors to submit, because we all want to see all these journals represented, as well as other variations. Like I said, there's quite a growth in haiku parks and installation art. So for journal editors, so from your print or online quarterly or triannual journal, for instance, Presence only publishes 3 times a year now. From the editors, we'd love to receive, if possible, 15 to 20 haiku, senryu, or hokku nominations per issue. If it's a monthly published journal, we'd love you to select up to 15 haiku verses each monthly issue. For rolling submission journals, like Scarlet Dragonfly is a new one, for instance, we'd love you to select up to 10 to 15 haiku verses per calendar month. And editors, with this particular selection, we'd love you to include one of yours to nominate. So include one of your own each time you nominate per issue or calendar month. And separately, as you are an individual outside being an editor, of course, do consider nominating your own haiku, as long as you nominate 6 haiku from other poets. So some of them could be from your journal, and some of them could be from someone else. Okay, next one. Right. Nominations from competitions and contests. This is for successfully placed published haiku, hokku, or senryu from January 2022 to the very last day of December 2022. So individual poets, please submit your own placed haiku verses from a contest and then nominate at least 6 other haiku verses from other poets from that contest or other competitions. To all organizations that run these competitions, whether it's haiku, hokku, or senryu, please feel free to submit all of the placed haiku poems per result. And what's that nomination email address again? It's the Haiku Reader. So that's the Haiku Reader, one word lowercase, the Haiku Reader @gmail.com. Next slide. Have you got a bit of a suntan out of that? Okay, so this is a little bit different. Haiku and other haiku verses can be nominated from any variation of linked genres as well. So that's shahai, which is the photograph and haiku combination, or senryu, etc. Haiga, renge, renku, renga, haiban. And as we know, there's lots of different types of linked genres, old and new, that are still popular. If the haiku verse is from a haiban, both haiku verse and prose need to be published for the first time in 2022, but it's only going to be the haiku verse, obviously, that will be nominated, as this is a purely haiku, senryu, hokku anthology. But do please add the linked verses title, if you like, alongside the rest of the publication details. You can nominate as many haiku verses all through 2022, right up to the last day of December. I won't mention the email address every time, because that would start to be annoying. Okay. Also, do encourage people that don't write haiku or even don't write poetry. So you do not even need to be a haiku poet to nominate. You do not even need to be a poet or a writer of any kind of genre, as you simply enjoy reading haiku because you are a haiku reader. Or it might be that you are a poet in other genres or a creative writer in other disciplines. And please do let them know the submission email, or they can pass it on to you and you can forward it to me. So the Haiku Reader, one word lowercase, the Haiku Reader at gmail.com. Next slide. That's an Anton Chekhov quote, which we've seen a lot. So, is it only my published haiku poems that I can nominate? Well, no, you can nominate your own haiku verses that have either never been published or even rejected many, many times. As a journal editor myself, I've been lucky to have grabbed a few that have been multiple rejected and put them in my journal. So just because they're rejected doesn't mean there might not be a fine haiku lurking there. Do you take haiku or senryu, etc., posted on various social media platforms? Yes, such as Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, YouTube, WhatsApp, and obviously there's loads of other social media platforms that you will know, or your kids or your grandkids will know as well. And of course, we're going to accept nominations if they're haiku, haiku, or senryu anyway. It doesn't matter where they come from. So this is another opportunity to have the recognition that your haiku, haiku, or senryu deserves. The haiku verses from other poets have to be either published, or if unpublished, then nominated with their knowledge and permission. So the submission email is the Haiku Reader, one word lowercase, the Haiku Reader at gmail.com. And there is a blog, which is the Haiku Reader as one word lowercase .blogspot.com. Okay, next slide. You do not need to be an expert, an editor, or a widely published poet to have fun reading haiku and choosing what you like and admire and learn from, as well as ones that surprise and delight you. So there's no need to contact other poets who you have nominated, though if you so wish, you can always let the poets know. After all, we are in this together. It can be a wonderful feeling to discover we've been nominated by someone. When a final shortlist is made from all the haiku, haiku, and senryu nominations, then the anthology poets will be contacted for permissions. Will now be a question and answer session. I'm sure there'll be lots of questions and I hope excitement too. The anthology will evolve. It will grow under your enthusiasm as you discover haiku, haiku, and senryu that you might not have read until the Haiku Reader nomination challenge effect. So handing over to questions, I shall stop the share. And as I said, I'll make the PDF available.
So unlike Jay's instructions, Alan has asked that you just unmute yourself and ask him directly. If you have any questions.
And I'm just going to. Right. Okay. It's not. I'm not sure there's sort of questions, but asking about what haiku is, haiku is, etc. The haiku is being made popular by Clark Strand. He's doing a lot. He runs competitions and workshops. Priscilla Liguri, she has a really good 575 haiku book on Amazon. That's Lignori. So all sorts of haiku and haiku are allowed. Everyone can be unmuted, and I'll do my best to jump in.
Just a very fast, practical question. To call your attention to Steve Joseph's question in chat, do published poems have to be published in 2022? And also, what counts as a print journal, would a printed chapbook or a book on a journal on Amazon that you pay for count as print or count as online?
Okay, so obviously there's going to be some haiku that were written previous to 2022. So if they were published, as long as it's in 2022 or posted, basically I'm aiming for 2022, but obviously there's going to be some that eventually get published or they do a self-publishing on Amazon, etc. If that lands in 2022, that automatically qualifies because of the year 2022 that it's arrived.
Alan, what if one is republished by a different editor in 2022?
We have that all the time. I mean, I've got one technically published from a few years ago that's appeared on the Haiku Foundation per diem today. I wouldn't call that a 2022 poem. It's also been featured and critiqued in various places, including Kala Ramesh's Triveni site, but it's still a previous one. There's going to be exceptions. I mean, I'm not into making things so strict. I want to give people a chance. So, okay, Dana, are you there? Dana Grover. He's a Haiku Nook colleague of mine. He says,
yeah, I'm here.
Hi, Dana. Is there a link to the rules for the anthology? Yes. I've got that on the PDF. Someone's very kindly, Jacob Lumner has kindly put it up there. So it's about, so, and as Jay said earlier, people can contact the presenter after the presentation, you know, whether it's today or another day. So there are kind of rules, but I'm not a policeman, so don't worry too much.
I have a question related to what Margaret just put in the comments for you to elaborate a little bit on the blog.
All right, okay. Yes, there's a funny story behind that. I can't access the blog anymore because I updated, and you know, Google likes to control everything. So when I update my computer, I can't access that blog. So I'll be going on to another blog, but it's still useful because I've covered as many questions as possible. The anthology will become really clear what it is when it's published. And also it will evolve as people contact me with their nominations, because I don't want it just to be a generic anthology. I expect some surprises. So someone asked how many poems will be selected. Again, I think there's obviously going to be a lot of quality haiku, senryu coming through. It will obviously depend on certain things, costings and so on, to bring in the book out. And that's why on my blog I've given my credentials, because I have a lot of editing background. But this is going to be organic until it's not, when it's brought out. So I'm going to be as surprised as everyone else.
Hi, Alan. I just have a quick question about, is there a youth section or an age limit or anything? I just know a number of young poets who would probably really enjoy this and the process.
Well, just like with my workshops, I've workshopped in person with people that are 1 year old all the way up to 99 3/4. You can be over 100 years old and you still won't be disqualified. There's no age barrier. I have judged competitions. I think it was the amazing Romanian girl, 12 years old. She was so good. We had to put her in the adult section because she won, but it didn't disqualify her from being a child. I think a haiku writer is a haiku writer. So any age or background, and it doesn't have to be published. It might be something the mum or the auntie or uncle is just saying. I thought that's just too good to disappear. So please do just blurt out. Everyone's been incredibly well behaved, which I'm not used to. A lot of questions about how he's going to be published. That will be revealed later on. There's obviously lots of dynamics, and I will be referring to my fellow Call of the Page team, Alison and Karen. And obviously we may bring in someone else as well. We do have a rule, we have to pay people, so costings come into it again. We don't have volunteers that are unpaid. Okay, so I still have to read them out, but no one's, please just blurt out.
Oh, can you say more about what counts as online and what counts as print? Because many things are now in both formats or sold on Amazon for Kindle or something like that. So just want to clarify there.
Okay, well, on one level, I've just said print journals because we know those, anything that's printed, and online journals, we know that. I've tried to say as well as I can, anything goes. If it's a haiku, hokku, or senryu, and it comes out in 2022, anywhere, it might even be just an art trail, installation art. It might be just out for a week. I don't want to lose it. Or if
No,
it's
what I'm concerned about is I don't subscribe to print journals as such, except for Frog Pond. And so how do I need to go out and subscribe to more print journals or find them in the library in order to make my 3 from print journals? Or is there some other, that's kind of my question, because finding 6 haiku sounds like a great deal of fun, but fulfilling the 3 from a print journal, as I do it all from Frog Pond, which is certainly possible, but.
right, well, I'm a subscriber to the Frog Pond PDF, so I would still call that a print journal, even though I get the PDF version. Both Frog Pond and Modern Haiku will bring out samples. Susan Antolin of Acorn updates her online examples. Obviously, there's going to be gaps. If you're not on Facebook, you won't see people regularly saying, I've just been published in Frog Pond, Modern Haiku, etc., etc. Usually you can find examples from the print journals. If you can't, I mean, I'm not going to come around to your house with handcuffs.
Thank you.
It's got to be fun all the way through. It's not
Absolutely
not breaking through any pain barrier.
So Alan, if someone publishes on Facebook or post on Facebook something that they had published in a print journal, then that's good. You don't have to actually have the print journal in hand.
Yes, and it is kind of useful that people will do that. I mean, because I want to promote the print journals as well, because they're not as easily seen, then someone putting it on Facebook means it could get nominated, and then that print journal gets mentioned in the anthology. So I do want to promote the print journals, because obviously more and more of us are just going on online social media. Okay, so someone asked about the editing process. That's so what I will do is remove all the names, jumble them up. It's just going to be me, and that's why on my blog I've got some of my credentials from my editing background. For instance, 5 years with the Red Moon Anthology, and so many other anthologies I've been involved with. So that would be just on me what the final selection is, but I do try to be as open as possible. I wouldn't want just what I think I like or what anyone or the general denominator might like. So Brian Cook has just asked, haiku are acceptable from Highburn, published in 2022. Does the submitter have to nominate haiku from just Highburn or from any source? How many? So you can, it's 6 verses each time. So I just activated my other computer. 6 verses each time. So that could be, if you choose just to go through Contemporary Highburn online, or Drifting Sands, or Kate McQueen's Quintily, you can just pull out the haiku from there. Basically, just because it's in a linked verse format, it doesn't mean it's not a haiku that can be nominated or cannot be nominated. So just enjoy, and it will encourage us to write more and more haiku in Highburn that really stand out on their own. This is partly influenced by Roberta Beery, with her article on make the haiku stand out. So how often can you submit? You could submit every single day.
Oh,
If you wanted to. You don't have to. The thing is, if you think, oh, I like what I've just written, I want to submit it. I've already had 1 or 2 people submit things that aren't published at all, and they're just written. I've also suggested to people on Facebook, I really like that. Send that. So you can send it often as you like, as long as you submit 6 other poems from 6 other people. So yes, and welcome to Rose from my almost hometown, Perth in Western Australia. Good evening or good night. Right, so
Hi there, I'm the only one here in my pajamas, am I? Yes, yes.
Oh, you're not.
Here I am. It's a wonderful thing you're doing here, because we have a whole year, Alan, in which to submit. So for each one haiku we want to submit of our own, we have to acknowledge there are 6 others that we love too. And so 3 from a print and 3 from an online. And it's great from the ones we often put up on Facebook, and then we later we say, oh dear, I can't use that one now because I've put it on Facebook. We've wanted to share it on Facebook with other haiku writers, obviously, or other people who love the written word. And of course, then we think that one is gone. But in your situation, Alan, of course, we can claw those back, and we can actually send them to you and have them shared in your anthology, which is wonderful. Thank you.
Oh, absolute pleasure. Yeah, you can. You don't have to worry if it's gone out and seen by a lot of people with Facebook, Twitter, etc. These things soon disappear. Right then, Soretta says, does anyone know, will it be print as well as blog? So the anthology, okay, it's going to be produced by Call of the Page. That's all I'm saying at the moment. It will come out, obviously what it is, on the day it comes out. Cathabella, sorry, I don't mind interruptions, as some people know. Who said something then? You can always blurt out, don't worry, you're not in trouble. Cathabella had a good question. Do you want us to ask permission of the poet before nominating their poem? If it's unpublished, and I use that in a very general term, then you should ask permission. They may have shown you their scrapbook or something. you may have gone on a drunken night out and they showed it to you in a nightclub before you were thrown out. Then you, it does happen. So if it's been published, posted, whatever, you don't have to ask them, but it's kind of cute to let them know, oh, by the way, I've just nominated you.
Okay, thank you.
No, absolutely. Richard, that's Richard Thomas. You can resend nominations. If you think you've got it wrong, just send it again, or because you can submit any time that you want. Whatever you've left out, you can bring in again. I mean, I'm trying to make sure that nothing is left out. I mean, I would love to be able to publish all of them, but that might not be possible, but we're going to have a go. Now, Margaret says, from sequences, can you only nominate one line? So haiku sequences, which have been around for a long time, they're either tercets, try to bring my Southwest England accent, tercets, the 3-line poems. Margaret says it better in a Southern drawl. And then you get 1-line monoku sequences as well. So if they all stand as haiku, in your opinion, nominate them. If it's a sequence that has 7 of them, pick 6, and then include the 7th one on the next nomination. So you don't leave anything out. So Jeannie says, if you only submit one of your own haiku, do you still have to submit 6 from another? Yes, I kind of want everyone to look around, and not just the usual suspects, but really look around. Now, someone said about the youth section, there won't be a youth section, but the Nicholas Virgilio competition results, this is partly down to Tom painting, because he's an incredible mentor, and lots of his students win at the Nicholas Virgilio competitions, supported by Haiku Society of America. They were so good, I had to put them on my Facebook page. I mean, you'd want them in any anthology, they were that good. Right then, a couple of new messages. Okay, yes, let's nominate the haiku we love. Often I write my favorite from others in a journal with the name of the author. It's wonderful for sound and inspiration. Good point. A lot of us keep a notebook of, oh, we like that haiku. We're going to make a note in our own private journal. You can now consider nominating them. Right, how are we timed, Bill and Ignatius?
We have about 17 minutes.
Okay, right, incredibly restrained lot you are, not like Haiku North America, which was a very enjoyable but free-for-all, with someone dragging a dead body across the room as well. Or dismantling it or something. Right, if I'm missing anyone from the chat, do shout out.
Ellen, I just wanted to say, it's not a question, but this is a great opportunity to, I think often we concentrate a lot on our own writing and don't do enough reading of other people's work. And it's, when you read other people's work, I learn, I should say, so much.
Yep.
And it helps me learn to edit and dissect my own work, maybe not as well as I do theirs, because that's harder, but I think this is a great opportunity to do that. So thank you.
Thank you. No, it's a very good point. The anthology isn't just to be an anthology, it's the whole process and experience of selecting. So you're all going to have fantastic stories that you just weren't aware was going to happen. It wouldn't have to be, a nightclub experience if you don't want it, but other things might happen as well.
I think it makes us become more adventurous too, Alan. We become more, we read other people's work, we're inspired by other people's work. We make a note in our journals, obviously, of the ones we love. And some of them are rather creative. They perhaps have a different format than we would ever think of ourselves. So it inspires us to be a little bit different. So
Yes.
the reading of the haiku is critical in any of the writing of the haiku, because one without the other really is only half the education that you would get, or the love of haiku that you might appreciate through the written word in haiku.
Yeah, you're right. Just because we're experienced, it doesn't mean we don't fall into bad habits. Another thing I discovered when I was a Irenga poet in residence with the general public, and we had about over 3,000 verses in a city up in the north of England, is people would say something, once they're relaxed, they start talking almost in short verses. It's amazing. But then when you ask them to write it down, it becomes stilted as if it's a school report. So I just realized I had to dictate it down, transcribe it as they said it. And they're always shocked how good the poem is and that they said it. So if you hear anyone say something and you think it's great, it could be a random member of the public, you know, in the supermarket queue or the nightclub before it gets busy, just write it down and say, do you mind if I nominate this? Because they might not even think, especially if they're not a poet in general, they might not even think of sending something off.
Alan, do you accept poems like from other languages, or is it just English? And will there be any translations?
This is a good point. It's possible that I could, it's the space as well. I know this is a big discussion point in general places. I think I can only do kind of so much, and it does seem lazy that it's just English, but it might be predominantly English. But if there's something that's really good in the original language, it'd be a shame to miss it out. So I'm kind of open to that, because I do get a thrill when I'm translated into different languages, and not just alphabet languages. But if it's an Asian language, not just Japanese or Chinese, but there's so many different languages that are non-alphabetic, and they're, for me, it's quite exciting to be published in those languages. So I'm going to try to be flexible, but I'm only human.
Alan?
Do.
Alan?
Alan?
Brian, yes.
Claire Vogel-Camargo here. Hi.
Hi.
I'm curious. The split sequences have become very popular. However, does that mean that they are an accepted form of haiku, and selecting haiku individually from split sequences, are those acceptable? Thank you.
Definitely from me, both embedded. For instance, if Jack Kerouac had just issued Dharma Bums, although it looks like it's just a prose novel, there's embedded haiku everywhere. So even if I didn't know who he was, I wouldn't turn his work down. It's the same with the split sequences, because it's clear what is a haiku. There's the other kind of broken up haiku that are in Hybern. Kat Lerman does that, and I think in Drifting Sands or somewhere like that, that's happened. So even if they look split up, if it comes together as a haiku, then, well, just nominate it, see what happens. I mean, I want to have this as a learning experience as well. Brian.
Yes, I have a, can you hear me?
I can hear you very well.
Okay, then. I've got one nagging thing in the back of my mind. If you submit a piece which is unpublished, or you nominate other unpublished work, I guess that it then becomes part of a publication process. And so a number of journals say, no, you can't submit anything to us that is in the process or has been published.
Yeah.
So there's this constraint nagging in the back of my mind, which I hate.
Okay, well, I don't see that as a problem. For instance, when I used to submit haiku to a haiku calendar. Sometimes they would just happen in the last couple of days, and I would add that. So they became published, but they can still get accepted in anthologies and featured in other ways. So like I said, one or two people have already sent stuff to me knowing that it won't get published in a journal.
Mhm.
But as long as they know that, it's a good point, but they should know that they're submitting something that will be published by Anthology so that it won't get into a journal.
Yeah, yeah.
So Rachel says, do you want to know where the poet is from? Yeah, I'm quite happy to know where everyone is from. I might just have the poem in the name, the author's name, partly because the book is also aimed at people that aren't necessarily haiku writers. It's just people who enjoy reading haiku. So they won't necessarily want a huge amount of information. I mean, I'm not going to have a forward and an introduction and an afterword and such. I want to keep it really accessible for people outside of the haiku norm.
I have a question. So this is Helen. When somebody submits something to you, will there be a timeline to receive a response as to whether it's been accepted for the anthology or not?
Right. So, for instance, if it's already published, then there's not a worry. And on the blog, I've given a rough timeline, not an actual date. But what will happen is by first day of January, I will obviously, there's a slight bit of leeway, but that's when the deadline ends.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when the timeline begins. I mean, I'll be making kind of selections, but I don't want to lose anything. So I'm going to be looking closely at things over and over again, which I have done for different places. I mentioned the Red Moon Anthology. I mean, I think I was one of the few that subscribed to every paid journal, and it was thousands and thousands and thousands to select. So I'm used to that, and obviously judging competitions, some of them are big. So if I have a feeling that they need to know, I can't always tell them it straight away, but then I'll make exceptions. I'm not going to just answer people when they're in the final, but it is a lot of work, as one or two people have said in the chat book. I have to be in the chat, so I have to be a bit cautious, but I still need to pay the bills.
Thank you.
So I'm trying to see, yeah, a lot of people said it's a huge undertaking. Yes, and I wouldn't have done it unless I knew, and I have been used to reading. I mean, when I first came to haiku, the first 5 years, I mean, I was reading up to, I think the first year or two, I was reading, I don't know, maybe 250,000 a year, haiku and haiku, etc. So I'm used to volume. I do close reading, but I am used to volume at the same time. So any other questions? So everyone is completely au fait with everything now, even if it might start changing.
I apologize for sort of dropping down into the bureaucratic weeds, but what you just said makes it so much more important that if you've taken an unpublished poem from someone to nominate it, then and if this will count as publication, then you don't want to surprise that person if they've submitted it someplace else, because some journals are very fastidious about whether or not it's currently in their submission to someplace else. Again, I apologize for this. Is really getting down in the weeds, but and all this more says, I guess, how much appreciate how big a undertaking you're doing. Thank you.
Pleasure. So yes, if someone nominates one of their poems not unpublished, and there's different reasons. It might be, I mean, I saw on Twitter, I think it was last year, they submitted to 100 journals and eventually got taken. A lot of people tend to give up after the third, fourth, fifth, or sixth journal. Then at least they will know they're in a chance. And if it gets published in the anthology, it's still a good credit, and it will be seen by a lot of people anyway. If it's nominating someone else and they have to ask that other person's permission if it's unpublished, and it's a big area unpublished, what does that exactly mean? If it was on an art trail that was temporary, they could still submit it to a journal. So if that issue comes up, I can always get back to them and say, someone's nominated, you're unpublished. Haiku, I've seen you've given permission, and just double checking. But if it's your own unpublished, then I think anyone that's over, let's say over 18 years, then they've made an adult decision. If they're under 18 or under 16, you know, then the case is you might need to talk to the parent, but of course the parent would probably, or the auntie or uncle would do not do the nominating anyway. And so there's bound to be things where I need to double check. So that's not a problem.
Alan?
Yep.
What you're doing is really cool.
Oh, thanks, Michael.
That's all I gotta say. That you're doing something really well, and this is one, when it shows up on YouTube, I'm gonna circulate it. This is a good thing you're doing. So and you got a great way of handling it. So
yes.
Or like you, we have to have a sense of humor. We're very serious people, but we're also a bit way out as well as being professional. So yeah, thank you very much, Michael. It's deeply appreciated. Right, we've got 3 minutes left. So any more questions? I mean, there's bound to be something that I've overlooked or someone else has overlooked. So someone just asked, don't you need the email of the nominated poet in order to get, in order to double check on things? Yes, I mean, what's good is that the person who's nominating the others, if I don't know them, which would be unusual, I can get back to Fred or Wilma and say, Mr. or Mrs. Flintstone, you must know this person. Can you let me have the email or ask them to contact me? Teresa says, if someone nominates a poem that is published in a journal, what is the process for getting? And forgetting is 2 words, so I don't think Teresa's forgotten, and I won't forget. So
what is the process for getting permission to reprint that poem?
Okay, so are you saying that I need permission of the journal?
Right.
Right, that's an interesting question. So, well, I get on really well with Tom at Frog Pond, so that wouldn't be a problem. I know Roberta, we often have breakfast, so that's going to be okay. I don't have a ready answer for that, because I feel that if you look at copyright law, I could probably do that anyway without permission, but it is quite a nice idea that I let on the final list, which are the ones that are going to go into the anthology, to let those editors know, whether it's a big journal or a 1 or a 2 person journal.
Alan,
Yeah.
Sean O'Connor, it's simpler than that. The good news is You don't need to get written permission or anything like that. Journals print journals in particular carry what's called first rights. So as long as you acknowledge that they were the first ones to publish it, you put the name of the journal after it, then it's okay. That makes it really easy for you. You don't need to contact anyone.
But you're saying the journal has to be on that page or mentioned at the back of the anthology?
No, well,
either way,
without getting too much detail, you either put the haiku, the name of the person, and then just say, for example, such a journal, whatever, or you say it, but you have to say that that piece is published by that journal. So you have two ways of doing it. Bang it underneath their name, very simple. Or if you go to the back, then you're going to have to say which piece was published by which journal. That's a big load of work. So the simple thing to do is just acknowledge it, but it's called first rights. And you don't need written permission for that, but you do need to do it. Everybody should know that if something's been published before somewhere else, you need to acknowledge that first publication. It's very simple. It's really easy.
Yeah,
it saves a lot of time as well for you. It sounds like you're going to need it.
Yeah, I know.
I'd like to chime in here and say I don't think that's accurate.
Well, I'm fairly sure it's accurate.
So if a journal has first rights, that's true. That means that another place does not have rights. It's actually the opposite. For a journal like this, you would need permission for each poem included. And different journals state things differently. Some say that you have to cite the original publication, others do not when it's reprinted. And that's not a law or anything. It's up to what the journal's agreement is when they accept your poem for the first publication. So if a poem is published and an anthology wants to use it, it needs permission for that. Just citing the earlier publication is not legal.
Right.
Okay, we are going to have to stop right there, and so we can allow time for the next group to get started. Thanks, Alan, and thanks everybody for
thanks for
participating.
Thank you, Alan.